meeting on this very brisk fall afternoon, and welcome all the members and guests. We begin our meetings for the folks who are new here. We have an invocation and a flag salute. I'm going to ask Judge Kevin Smith and to provide the invocation, and Mr. Aaron Cunningham for the flag salute. Your Honor.
Please bow your heads. Dear Father, we thank you, Lord, for bringing us here together in fellowship. We thank you for the speaker that you brought here. We pray, Lord, that you'll open our ears and open our hearts to hear this message. We also, Lord, thank you specifically for the leadership you've given us in Kansas as well as in D.C. Pray, Lord, that you'll bless our leaders, give them wisdom and grace to lead us, Lord, and to implement policies that encourage us, Father God, and that give us more opportunities, not less. We also pray, Lord, that you'll bless this meal, Lord, and bless this day and weekend. We thank you, Lord, for everything. In your holy and precious name, in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kevin, Aaron, thank you both. At this time, normally we have an introduction of elected and party officials, candidates. We've got the school board candidate, James Kirkpatrick in the Wichita School District. Ask everybody to hold off any applause until I get everyone introduced. We have Mike Sammerslaw with Senator Moran's office. State Representative Cheryl Helmer is here. We've got a couple other judges and past Pachyderm Club President Phil Journey. I saw Phil. There he is. And Linda Kirby. And we have State Party Treasurer Bob Duell here. Have I missed any other elected? And well, Kevin Smith, who I've already been put up here brought up here at the podium. We need to overlook him. Is there anyone else? Because at this time I'd turn this over to John Todd, but I'm going to just mention briefly that our speaker today serves with me on the Salvation Army Board. So I want to just get that in as a fact, because they're going to be, Salvation Army will be much more visible as we enter the holiday and Christmas season later on. So, and with those kind of words, I'm going to introduce our Vice President, John Todd.
Thank you, Carl. Talking about next week, we have Celeste Bogart Brissett is going to be our speaker. She and a fellow named Dean Bradley has formed the Save Century 2 committee. It's a grassroots committee, and I thought it'd be appropriate to have someone come in and maybe give a slightly different perspective on that issue than maybe what we're getting. So that next week, November 8th, Ted Golema. He's the Associate Professor of Economics at Wichita State University. He works in the Institute for the Study of Economic Growth. He's going to talk about net neutrality and the government attempts to regulate the internet. November 15th, we've got our own county manager, Tom Stoltz. He's going to give us an update from the county manager of Sedgwick County. Today, before I want to invite Mike Witherspoon to come on up. Well, Mike's coming up. We're delighted to have Dr. Carey with Friends University here with us today. And there is some literature on your table. And if you didn't get literature you like, there's literature on the table over here. So please help yourself. My friend Mike Witherspoon, we serve as trustees on the New Symposium Society. He now is employed with Friends University, and we're delighted to have him introduce our special guest speaker today. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Johnny. As an employee under her direct supervision, I'm glad to introduce Dr. Carey, who is 4 years into her work as the president of Friends University. My observation and summation is that she is the consummate university president, smart, focused, driven, firm, kind, attuned to the humorous, converses easily with varied strata of humanity, and is deeply aware of higher cosmic authority. She has the big picture clearly in mind, but is not put off by the details and fine points. She hires well. Her supporting cast of VPs are on whatever page she turns to. They clearly admire her, and I've met no one who doesn't wish her a long, long tenure. In my opinion, Friends is poised to have a recognition and prominence beyond what it has known in its previous 122 years. More formally, Dr. Amy Bragg Carey began her role as president of Friends on July 1st, 2015. Dr. Carey came from Minnesota, where she served as the vice president of institutional advancement for the University of Northwestern since 2003. Her vision for Friends, building on their RISV, their RISE values, respect, inclusion, service, and excellence, is to be an uncommon university that is excellent in all things, sees the light of God in everyone, with the goal to lift up each person's God-given potential. She holds an EDD from Azusa Pacific, an MA in philanthropy from St. Mary's in Minnesota, and an undergraduate in communications from Bethel University in Minnesota. She's married to Brian. They have 2 kids, Anna and Brett, who live in Minnesota. Amy and Brian are enjoying the many civic and cultural opportunities that the Wichita community offers. Welcome, Dr. Amy Bragg Carey.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me to speak today. I'm honored to do so, and my husband and I are really enjoying the Wichita community. There's so much to do here. Last night, I think I had 4 different invitations, and so we had to choose what we wanted to be a part of, and that, I think, is one of the exciting things about being here in Wichita, especially at this time. So much happening in the city, so much growth, new opportunity, the cultural events, and so we have really enjoyed being a part of the community. I enjoy serving on a number of boards. The Salvation Army is one of those. And so we really believe that Wichita is a gem, that this city is a wonderful gem that not everyone knows about. We love that there's not a lot of traffic coming from Minneapolis. We're kind of over that. And so it has been a wonderful transition, but I have to tell you that I was maybe not given all the facts when I came to a candidate to be a president at Friends University. And the university had set up a meeting with the board chair at the time, John Lewis, and Kim Duggar Atwater. I don't know if you know Kim and Paul Atwater, but Kim was formerly Miss Kansas, and just delightful, and she's on our board of trustees. She's thoughtful, she's talented, she's gifted in so many ways, but she came to help sell us on Kansas and Wichita. And I said, you know, I grew up on the lake in Minnesota. I love the lakes. Do you have beautiful lakes here? And she said, yes, yes we do. And I have to say that I don't know if I've found those yet. I'm still looking for them. So if there's anything I do miss, that might be the lake. I was talking with someone last night. We got onto the conversation of Garrison Keillor. So I also come from the land of Garrison Keillor, where everyone's like above average and good looking. What was that? I don't know. Yeah. And we eat a lot of white food. So it's cream of mushroom soup on just about everything in Minnesota, and we like it that way, tater tot hot dish and all that. So every once in a while you might hear my Minnesota come out, but it is great to be here. And I brought a fan club with me today, so I have a number of our vice presidents from Friends University over in the corner. They'll wave. Yes, hello. And then Dr. Kevin Hoppick is our new board chair. So if you haven't had the opportunity to meet one of our best doctors in Wichita, Kevin Hoppick, he's here today too. So I've been thinking about what I would say to you today, what would be of interest to you, business and community leaders in Wichita. And there's really so much that's happening in our community and our world today. It's in many ways an uncertain time, a divisive time, particularly with all that's happening politically. And likewise, it's a challenging time in higher education, especially private higher education. And the funding model for education is changing, and especially with free college proposals. And so I'm going to touch on that a little bit today. But what I'd like to share with you today is a vision for a thriving university in an uncertain landscape of higher education, and specifically two things. One, what's happening in the landscape of higher education and what are we doing about it at Friends University? And why does higher education, specifically a place like Friends University, matter to you, people of Wichita? And so why would you care that we have that resource here in this community? But first, as a college president, I can't resist bragging a bit about my institution. And so I hope you'll, and it's in my name, Amy Bragg Carey. So hopefully you'll allow me a moment to brag about my university and just share with you some bits and pieces of information. Hopefully you're aware of our legacy in the fine arts with the Singing Quakers. Have some of you heard the Singing Quakers? Some of you? Okay, great. So we are known throughout the region for excellent fine arts, particularly the Singing Quakers, but also our ballet program. We have a beautiful ballet program that's unique as a college to have that program. Just brought back music theater to Friends University, and so I want to invite you all to a new show, Bright Star, that'll be happening in November 15th through 17th. Bright Star is a new musical written by Steve Martin, goes back to the 1940s, and I think it's the Hills of Appalachia, is that right? And so there's banjos and all kinds of fun things in this show. It's the first time it's being done here in Wichita. So if you are interested in coming to a great production, Bright Star, let me know. I'll help you get some tickets. We're also pleased to have a nationally recognized program in zoo science. Did you know that? Did some of you know that? So every time I talk in Wichita, I mention that we are nationally recognized for zoo science. So we have students that come from all over the country to Wichita, to Friends University for our zoo science program, which is done collaboratively with the Sedgwick County Zoo. And it's a great program. If you Google zoo science programs, we come right up to the top. So we get people from all over. So it's really a wonderful program. And we've now added conservation science. And that's kind of akin to our zoo science program. If you've heard our zoo director speak about the long-term plan for the zoo, much of it relates to conservation efforts, conserving species. And so this is something that's very important not only here in Wichita, but around the country. And so we're excited to have that new program. We just launched it this fall. We already have 12 students in that program. And it won't just be for conserving species, but also for sustainability in other ways. And so if you go to zoos around the country, many of them are being led by Friends University graduates. We also have strength in athletics. We're NAI Division II. We've won the Commissioner's Cup, which is kind of an all-sports award for our conference for the last 4 out of 5 years, so a lot of success there. We're a leader in Christian spiritual formation, and this is a program that's very unique to Friends University under the direction of James Bryan Smith, who is our professor, and he's an author. He's authored 12 books, and he speaks all over the country and the world. In fact, he's right now in Australia, speaking to some folks there. And he's not real well known here, but he's kind of a big deal around the country in the area of Christian spiritual formation. And one of his books has sold over 200,000 copies. So we have a best-selling author right at Friends University. And we've now added a master's program in Christian spiritual formation and leadership, and that's been very successful. We've launched new majors in Spanish translation and interpretation, a new special education program, a new mechanical engineering program, and of course we have excellent health science programs where students study in Ghana and last year in Iceland, and then of course programs in business, art, criminal justice, education and communications, political science, history, so all of those programs. Now the question I probably get asked most frequently is about our enrollment numbers. And people will say, are you up? What's your enrollment? And so I'll share that with you. But there's another piece of that I think is really important. So yes, we are up this year in new students and new freshmen over several years. We're up over last year in our traditional population. We have about 800 traditional students and about another 800 adult students, so that would be master's and degree completion. And then we have students that are in dual enrollment, so they're taking high school and college courses at the same time. We do a lot with our teacher workshops, so helping teachers get their next level of certification for our public school teachers. And so at the end of the year, we send out these 1098 forms, anyone who's been a tuition paying student, and we serve over 4,300 students in a year. So it's quite a few students that come to Friends University for one of those programs. But the important thing is not necessarily the number, but the net revenue. And so as you see across the country, these pretty significant scholarships, a lot of that's unfunded. So it's unfunded scholarships, and we've been really watching how we allocate those dollars so that we have a positive net revenue. So that's been important to us, and we've been doing well there. So the other thing I wanted to mention to you is that we don't do the crazy stuff that you hear about on Fox News. So this morning I was listening to Fox News, and there is a college that is banning clapping over jazz hands. Did you see that? Anybody see that today? So you can't clap like this. I don't know why exactly, but so you can only use jazz hands. And then you hear about colleges that are using the Care Bears to call students that have crazy titles for some of these classes, and that's not us. So when you hear about these things that are happening somewhere in the country, that's not Friends University, that's not every private institution, and we have a lot of really traditional programs, great liberal arts courses, and all of that. So I just want to make mention of that. I actually contacted Fox News and said, please come talk to us, because we're not one of those crazy places that is doing this stuff that you talk about on your show. They haven't called me back. But anyway, so I just wanted to mention that. So prior to my arrival at Friends University, I spent 5 years of my life studying the landscape of higher education, especially schools that made a turnaround, a dramatic turnaround. And so I wanted to share a little bit of that background with you as we look at this question of what's happening in higher education and what are we doing about it. So higher education is in a time of disruptive change. We are in a time of disruptive change. Concerns about escalating cost. The media questioning the value of higher education. You've probably all heard that, right? How the media is saying, should we really, should students really spend the resources to go to a college and have some debt and all of that? Increasing competition for students, escalating discount rate, what I just mentioned to you. And then the demographics is not working in our favor. So we just don't have as many students that were born in the population that are moving on to college, especially as we look at what happened during the Great Recession. So we think a few years in the future will be a particular kind of cliff downturn in the population. And then in Wichita, and this was big yesterday when we had Ivanka Trump here talking about the tech programs and being able to do welding and sheet metal and all of that. So in Wichita, there's a big promotion of tech programs, and that's important. I'm not going to diminish that, but it seems to be kind of the prevailing topic of higher education. So there's the competition factor, and that's a big piece of what's happening in higher education across the country, but it's especially challenging here in Kansas. So the Census Bureau predicts that Kansas population will grow by about 252,000 people, although most of that growth is going to be in the age group of 65 plus. So we are aging in place as a state, not much in the college-bound category. And there are 67 institutions of higher education. So that includes all the tech schools, the beauty schools, all of those 4-year, 2-year schools. And we have a 64% college continuation rate, which means about 21,000 students go on to college. After you factor in those that get the largest share of freshmen, those 3 top institutions, the remaining students, if you divide all those remaining students, that leaves 155 students per institution. Not very many, 155 freshmen. Now we got more than that, so obviously we stole some of somebody else's 155 share. So that's a lot of competition, and it's pretty fierce here in Wichita as well. And what we've seen in recent years is that families are really looking at the bottom line costs, and that's reasonable and understandable. So we're doing a lot to mitigate kind of the cost factor in education. And then another sea change is government regulation, and that increases the cost of higher education. Thankfully, the current administration is rolling back some of those regulations, but we now need compliance officers in the area of Title IX and financial aid, so it's just adding to the overall cost of education. And the big disruptive change that's in the horizon, in the looming uncertainty, is the mix, in that all mix is the potential free college program. And so different states are looking at different models. Some have already adopted some free college models. And all of that sounds great. I mean, free college is, who wouldn't want the opportunity for free college? But if you look at the impact of that policy, and the Georgetown University Center on Education and Workforce looked at that, and their best estimation is that the overall impact would be a 22% increase in enrollment at public universities, and then a decrease in private institutions by about 7 to 15%. And so what happens there, what could be have the most difficult, would be the small institutions, the small institutions in small towns that are kind of moderately selective. Those institutions would be the hardest hit. And in our state, we have a number of colleges that are in small towns, and in many ways they are the town. So you look at Sterling College in Sterling. I mean, that's the town. If that goes away, that's got a big impact. So, and it would be an impact for us as well at Friends University. So we're currently watching all of this, and I'm a part of the public policy, National Public Policy Committee for NICU. NICU is an association of independent colleges and universities, about 2,100 schools, and so I'm representing Kansas, and I'll be a part of some meetings in Washington, D.C. coming up here in November. And so as a part of that work, we are looking at what's happening with the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. And there's several positives in the bill, and that's moving forward now through the House. And there's several positives, but there's also some negatives. One of the positives in that bill is a Pell Plus program. So Pell funding goes to the lowest income students. And that's very helpful for our low income students. We have about 45% of our students are Pell eligible. They get some Pell funding. If students stay on track to graduation and don't need to access additional years of Pell funding. So that's a positive in this Higher Education Reauthorization Act. A negative is that there's a carve out for free college at community colleges. And so our position has been that the aid should go to the student, not the type of institution. And so that's what we'll be looking at and talking about when we participate in some of the meetings in November. We're not sure what will happen on the Senate side, but that's where we're headed with the Higher Education Reauthorization Act. So that's just a little bit of an update for all of you, what's happening in the landscape of higher education, many of the changes and things going forward. So when I came to Friends University 4 years ago, I knew that we had to put a plan together that would address some of those issues and propel us forward. And so now we have a strategic plan that builds on our strength and our excellence, our nationally recognized programs and other things, as I mentioned, staying focused on our mission. So we are a Christian University of Quaker heritage, and we believe that that is an important distinctive of who we are. We believe that distinctive is important for this community, and so we are continuing to focus on that as an institution. We're also creating new market demand programs that have interest in this marketplace and to students like cybersecurity and mechanical engineering. And we're making sure that every one of our programs has a pathway to profession, guaranteed internships for every student, so that they have the best training possible in addition to their academic studies, to have that real-world experience so that they're prepared for their future, for getting a job after college. And so that's very important to us. And then we're looking at how we can deliver education and how we do our business so that it works in this new environment. And so we're doing some things differently, we're more nimble, we're working with more partnerships, business and other partnerships. All of that is a part of the new world of higher education. And then for a place like Friends University, those value add, those special things that we can offer our students, really important. So I mentioned that our health science students will be going to Ghana. We've got students traveling all over the country and the world this summer with some of these specialized opportunities. Last summer, our students, our singing Quakers, were out in Europe and did a beautiful job representing Wichita in Europe, singing to audience that were just truly amazed at the passion and the beauty in which they sung their pieces. So those are some of the value add opportunities that we're focusing on. So the second piece of what I wanted to share with you is, why does a place like Friends matter to you and to this community? So there's the obvious economic value, right? So we have 400 part-time and full-time employees that, live and work in this community. We've got students spending money in the city, all of that's happening. But I want to share a few other things that I think important to note about why it's great to have a place like Friends University. Are you familiar with the James Chung research? Have you seen some of that in the newspaper? James Chung came in through the work of the Wichita Community Foundation and has been evaluating Wichita compared to some like cities and giving us some feedback on how we can help grow our city. And one of the things that he identified was that our degree attainment, our college degree completion, was some of the lowest among the peer cities. And his study revealed that each 1% in college attainment adds $273 to a city's median income for everyone. And that an educated workforce matters to the growth and the success of the community. So we are a partner in this effort to increase the number of students graduating and moving forward into the workforce. Also trying to reach back and get those students that maybe have left college, want to finish their degree with our adult programs. And so we're constantly looking at making sure that our students are on track to graduate, that we stay in touch with them. We have success coaches that work with our students in our adult programs, and that's very important to us. The second thing that I think is a value for a place like Friends is that We are a resource to the community, an educational resource and training with interns, with cultural opportunities. And we are personalizing a number of these opportunities for businesses. We've done Six Sigma training for Excel industry. We've got a cyber lab that's open to business in our community. We just did a cyber security lunch and learn that was open to the community. We train a number of teachers, elementary and secondary teachers, and we have a real shortage of teachers in our community. We don't talk about that much, but it's there and it's growing. That shortage is growing. And so we do a lot of training of teachers. So that's another important resource for the community. And then the third aspect that I think is really unique. In fact, I was talking with Wayne Chambers last night. It was one of my events that I was at last night. We were talking about the diversity of higher education in Wichita. You know, we are really blessed here to have a 4-year research institution, a 2-year community college, tech school, and private institutions, Newman and Friends. Newman's Catholic, Friends University, Christian University, Quaker Heritage. And so what a wonderful, diverse opportunity for students in this area. You can really find just about anything you'd like to study here in Wichita. And so that, I think, is really significant. And as Wayne was saying, you know, we don't talk about that very much. We don't talk about how we have all of these opportunities. And communities our size, to have this diversity of education, I think, is really a blessing. And we want to celebrate that. I think we want to lift up all institutions and celebrate that. Sometimes people ask me, well, why would someone come to Friends University if you could go to Wichita State and save money? You know, if it's a lot cheaper, why wouldn't you just go to Wichita State? And some students want a big school. There's certain things that they like about that, maybe to be there cheering on the basketball team, and that's cool. But others get lost in that environment, and so a small institution is really helpful for them. Of course, some students really want to get their technical training, and we need folks in that, in the tech schools, and plumbers and electricians and all of that. We don't want my son to do any of that, that's for sure. But I'm very grateful that he doesn't take on any of those technical skills. Well, we'd like for him to do it, but I don't know if he's very good at it. And then students that... Our vision for the future of Friends is based on the premise that we have the recipe to nurture human beings who have a devoted heart, a courageous mind, and a purposeful soul. And just as we have for decades, the iconic Davis Tower, hopefully you see that as you're driving on Kellogg, will continue to shine magnificently to be this kind of place. The tower is really a symbol of light, as we seek to, the light we seek to be in our community. And if you know, we light it up at Christmas time. And so as you drive by and you see that, I hope it's a reminder that our university desires to build a connection between the spiritual life and the intellectual life. And our goal is to be a light in this community. So thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure to speak to you. And I think if we have time for a couple of questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. Indeed, we have about 15 minutes, so I'll just start with our members. We have hands raised. We have one right here. Then I'll be back to you, Judge, and we'll take it from there. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a question on demographics of the student body, spiritually, Christian versus non-Christian, Quaker versus others, and how does that compare to other universities?
So Friends University, our history is that we are an inclusive community. So there are some Christian universities that you'd have to sign a faith statement to be a part of that community. That's not the situation at Friends. We're open to students from a variety of backgrounds, faith backgrounds, other backgrounds. So we have a good number of, I don't know if we have a percentage in terms of those that would identify as Christian. The Quaker community is not particularly large in terms of numbers of those attending churches here in the area, but we do have a good number of Quaker students, and we're growing in that. We want to continue to grow our number of students that come from our friends' churches. So we have probably a predominance of non-Christian students at the university, and seeking to build that, build up the Christian base of our community. But we really enjoy that aspect of Friends University as students that are far from God come and have the opportunity to ask those big questions. I mean, I don't know what their ultimate decision will be, but we believe that we're there to, in a way that's not poking holes in people's faith, and sometimes at some of these universities, quite frankly, that does happen. We're there to stretch and strengthen their faith. We have chapel, but it's not required, although we have several hundreds of students that come on occasion, and sometimes it's not as many, and sometimes it's pretty full. So we have a number of activities that support our mission, but not all of our students are Christian that come to Friends University.
I'm going to break a rule. This is more a statement, so I apologize. My oldest daughter, Emily Smith, goes to Friends, and I raised her to love her God and to love her neighbor as herself. And I'm just here as testimony to say that kids are different. Our middle child goes to Wichita State, but Emily goes to Friends and she's thriving. And I just want to thank you, because right when you came on board, Friends re-embraced its Christian heritage. And I want my daughter to be able to be exposed to a diversity of viewpoints and not be attacked whenever she does that. And she gets that at Friends University. And the only question I have is, when you see Emily on campus, could you tell her to spend more time with her mother and dad?
Sure. She's a busy girl. She's a busy girl, very involved. So, yeah.
Thank you, sure appreciate the presentation. One of the challenges for any higher educational institution in this day and age that has a football team is Title IX. Could you talk for a minute about how women's athletics is doing out at Friends University? Since, as you put out in this wonderful flyer, you're the only college football here in Wichita.
That's right. We are the only college. We're in a rebuilding year, so it's a little bit of a challenging year for us this year. Yes, it's a rebuilding year, but we do have college football, and actually have a really dynamic coach who is all about student development and our football team going to class and making sure that they're on the right track. I'm really serious about that. He is on it, and he's talking to these students about, this is a college. You're going to be going to class and doing your assignments. But so we have 19 sports. Am I right about that? We have 19 sporting teams, and I think at least half of them are female. Yeah. So we're constantly evaluating that, making sure that we're giving enough support financially. There's information that we have to submit every year to demonstrate our support for female athletics, our female students in terms of scholarships and in other ways. And so some of our women's teams are doing very, very well. The women's soccer team has only lost one game so far, and so we're off to a good start. Volleyball is doing very well. So we're very supportive of our female athletes, and actually started women's golf recently, brought back cheer, competitive cheer. So the sports that we've added in recent years have been our female sports. So, yes.
You mentioned the mechanical engineering program. Can you expand upon that, what brought it about, where you're going with it, and what the requirements are for getting an intern from your program?
Great questions. Thank you so much. We just launched mechanical engineering this fall. We approved it with our board of trustees late spring, so we didn't get the whole year promotion that we typically like to have, at least a year promoting a new program. But we have 12 students in the mechanical engineering program. We started that program because we had a couple of programs that were consistently requested, but we didn't have that major. Mechanical engineering was one of those two programs. And so we'd get a lot of visitors to campus and say they're interested in mechanical engineering. So we started that and really are pleased with the response so far. We think that will grow. The student that we think will be interested in that program will be someone that, as I mentioned, want to continue to play their sport, and they're maybe not at the D1 level, or could go to Wichita State and play their sport, or play an instrument and do mechanical engineering. And so we've got 2 football players right now that have come to Friends University for mechanical engineering, and so that combination of being able to play football and do mechanical engineering is important for them. One student was recruited by 50 different institutions. He's a very sharp young man, and it was the combination of being able to come to a Christian school and have mechanical engineering and play on the football team. And so we were able to recruit him. So we're very pleased to have that new program. Talk to Mike Witherspoon, who's right here, about mechanical engineering opportunities for internship, and we're also starting an advisory board to work with our faculty members and our students. And so we want to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our community, and so we've gathered maybe 10 people so far, would you say, interested in the...
7 for sure.
Okay.
We have a couple spots.
Okay, so we're working to have this advisory board and to make sure that we meet the needs of the community. What are they looking for with our students, our graduates, and so so if you have an interest or you know someone who would like to be a part of that, we'd love to include you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, over here.
Yeah, online education or virtual classrooms is a popular term. Do you see that decrease in the need for the brick and mortar schools? And do you see it as the same quality of education as going to school?
Okay, a couple of questions there. With online education, you know, it's interesting that most of the students that are taking online courses are within a radius of about 50 to 100 miles. So it's surprising to some people because they do look for a school that they maybe know the name, have some recognition and understanding of that institution. And so while you think it's, you know, it's open to anyone across the country when you offer these programs, predominantly you're finding people within a certain radius. And that's true for Friends University. We have a number of online programs and courses. We see that some of our traditional students will sometimes take an online course just to manage their schedule because they're working, they're maybe in a sport, in fine arts, and they're trying to balance all of that. So sometimes an online course will fit well into their schedule. So even some of our traditional students will take those online courses. Yes, I believe they're every bit as good, and a part of my education experience was as a distance learner, as an online learner, and they can be very, very wonderful, robust classes if they're done well. And so that training is very important. We're hoping to grow our online programs, and because we believe that that's necessary in this environment, is to have not only traditional courses, the face-to-face, but blended courses where you have some of both, online and the face-to-face, and then the online program as well. And so for many of our adult programs, our graduate programs, which I didn't get to talk much about, we have some excellent ones. We do a good number of those programs and courses online. And that just provides flexibility for adults that are trying to work and families and all of that. So it can be very, very well done, and we believe that we do it well and hope to increase that. Yeah.
We have time for one more question. I'll take it over here.
I follow with her in. My experience with my grandson and granddaughters going to the municipal schools, Wichita U, KU, and K-State, that a lot of their classes, the professors, probably would flunk the class unless they gave the answers that they wanted, and which a lot of times they're not Christian, they're not, I would say they're from a different party, and it really makes it difficult for these kids to have to be under that. Do you see that only in the public schools type, or do you, I wouldn't imagine it's in your school.
Well, you know, there's so many colleges and universities throughout the country, and all of them have some different, you know, bents in different directions. I don't know if I can speak to all of those, and don't want to speculate in terms of how they're providing their education. We think that we provided a tremendous product. You're going to be in a class with the professor and maybe 15, 20 other students at the most. So you're going to get a lot of individual attention at a place like Friends University. Our faculty really, really care about our students. They have them over to their home for dinner. I mean, it's a totally different environment at a place like Friends University, and we encourage that. And there is a little bit of a cost differential, but you know, some of these schools have significant fees and other things that you don't see, and the scholarships sometimes aren't as significant. You know, we're close to, well, about $29,000 a year for tuition, but you know, 50% of that is going back in various scholarships. So students are earning, on average, about $15,000 in scholarships for our traditional programs. Our adult programs are priced really competitively with all the other adult programs in this community. So we think for the price, for the value, you can't beat what you get in a small institution like Friends University. And what's really important to me is we are integrating our values, our RISE values, our faith values in all that we do. And so as we're working with our students, it's not to undermine what mom and dad have built into that student for all of those years. We're there to stretch and strengthen their faith, but not poke holes in it. And so we think that's really important, and we think we're a great value, and sometimes I think people just don't recognize that. They don't see that. They think private institution, very expensive, but there are many other colleges like us around the country, and that provide that same kind of thing. So yeah. Well, thank you again. This has been a thrill to be a part of this today.
Carey, thank you all. And by the way, I'm just going to get a last minute plug for it. Friends University hosts the new symposium. John Todd's been very active in it. It's a wonderful group, exploring ideas. I want to thank Friends for helping, allowing that group to meet. There are a lot of Friends faculty and folks involved in it. Everyone here at Pachyderm, thank you for attending. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you.